Okay, see if I remember how to do this. See you, Mr. Jones. Thank you for the look. Appreciate it. Okay. First day with a quiet house. Back to doing software things. Get myself all situated still. I've been doing the game library stuff, so I've switched over. Oh, goodness me. They did not make Rider stable in this latest release. Okay. The problem with taking time off streaming is when you find other things to do, you risk the starting a new schedule thing. So I got into the habit of watching some racing streams in the mornings. So now I've got to stop watching things. Do the streaming myself. Okay. Oh my goodness me. No. No more updates. I'm done. But I had everything stable before the stream. I clearly did not have everything stable before the stream. Start up. In general, yes. So it's just some databases to look at. Yep, generally working. Switch this one out for client app, Liquid Sky, this window. Well, the title of the stream today kind of lends itself to some thoughts I've had while taking the bit of a break. And it's basically just resetting on why I'm doing this and figuring out if it's actually something that people could and would use, or whether it's just kind of an ideal. I've seen some reorganization of priorities. I've seen understanding of, or lack of understanding of process. I've seen what happens when you try and apply too much process and too little process. And I'm not sure that. Sorry, I've got a dog curling up on my foot. I'm not sure that developers are. Well, developers are never the market that I want to aim at for this, right? I want to avoid developers. I want to give developers a chance to just get on with what they want to get on with and focus this more on the management and planning aspects. But having thought about this more, developers are the primary users of all the software we talk about. So I'm kind of trying to decide on my priorities. I think the goals are correct. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with myself. I don't disagree with myself in terms of what I'm trying to achieve. What I'm questioning is a tool that adds a load more requirements and a load more rigidity actually going to work, I guess. Because people. So if I don't believe it's going to work, how do I put in the effort to building a piece of software that is uh, not lacking in size, let's say? And that's eating away at me right this second as to whether the value is there um, at all. So let's have a look. Let's go to full stack. Let's see if everything runs up and starts after a week of not being opened. Nope, it's going to fail immediately. Console doesn't save its configuration. You can keep trying to start, but that's not going to work. We need this. The challenge with starting everything up is when one of the things fails. Yeah, let's try and stop all. I'm not sure what the keyboard shortcut is to end. I don't think there is. Cancel. 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 There's 13 services that I have to start up, so I'm fighting it here. There we go. Stop. Okay. Let's see if I can make that a little easier. Edit. When previous started. After previous started. After previous started. Wonder if that'll help. So if the gateway comes up first, if the gateway starts, the next one will start. That should manage the order better, right? In theory. Only dog elbows on my foot. So let's try that once more. The issue with doing it that way is that the startup time is a little longer. Okay, it's looking healthier. There we go. Can we view data? Yes, we can. Got requirements. They're really showing. Okay. So I think the way I'm going to be able to tell whether this tool is going to be useful is I need to focus on what do I need? And I mean, what do I need to be able to start using this application to track the work that I need to do? Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and create an item as clearly as I can, the way that I would expect it to be done, and then see what extra information I think I need to be able to move that. Right. Changes is changes, right? Changes is useful, but changes right now doesn't get me anywhere to using the application. I don't need to tell myself that I've completed something. So changes isn't going to help that, right? That's a very cool feature. That's a very powerful feature for the future, but it's not the feature I need right this second. So let's try and describe the changes feature and see how much I'm missing. So as a product manager, I want to be able to see what, right? Um, so as a product manager, again, the idea here is not that you have to describe that story exactly, right? Because technically the requirements would actually generate the as a whatever. This would be aimed at um, this would be aimed more solidly at trying to define what it is we're after. So um, wow, my brain is completely going blank on this one. Wait a second. This is not good. Let's try and let it flow a little bit. Um, I think I'm going too technical. Let's not do this. I am going too technical. So let's go. And this is often a challenge if developers are writing stories because developers are going to go to the technical aspects. So you've got to try and stop yourself from being a developer and think more as someone who doesn't have an insight into the technical underpinnings, but does have an idea of how the general software works and what features are available to them already. So, planning item. Um, displaying um, changes on planning items. Changes to planning items are important to see. Primarily, review date changes. No. The I know what I'm trying to describe. I'm just struggling to describe it. So what I want to do is say, okay, a planning item. Seeing the changes is useful because the people involved in the planning item, the people that might care about the planning item, are going to change based upon what you've attached to it. So if it's projects, then someone might want to see it on their radar, right? Um, um, so its primary use is not understanding the evolution of the item. Um, so how do I say it? It's important because the visibility. If I have a monitor saying, "Hey, if planning items are assigned to this project, let me know so I can review them." Right? I can get a list of to review items without actually having to go on hunt for them. The system can tell me, "Hey, by the way, this planning item has got this project attached to it. You might need to review it." Um, I'm not trying to necessarily create work for other people there. That's not a hey. This project was assigned to this planning item. You might want to go talk to them and tell them, "Oh no, you're completely wrong." It's more of a hey, um, um, go review this and keep an eye on it, sort of thing. Um, changes to planning items may impact um, who. Um, how, I don't know even way that's phrased, but again, I'm trying to do this for real to describe it without being lazy, right? Because that's the challenge. If I just get lazy and type in one sentence and call it quits, then that's not the purpose. Friendly good morning to the wise dev. There's great stuff on that one. Wish you could luck. Need to jump into project source code. His documentation is as good as a spoon with a hole in it. Good luck and wish you more progress. Half luck. Kanye, thank you very much for stopping by. Appreciate those kind words. And I also need to get my points so I don't have too much. Yeah. Well, may your may you fill your spoon. I hope it goes well, sir. Okay. So um it's important to understand because what I keep coming back to is the alerting aspect, right? So again, analyzing what I'm talking about and trying to figure out um, how useful this is. Displaying changes on planning items isn't really changes to planning items. Many aspects. Also useful to be able to be told about them. So what I've often come up against rather, in the all right, that was I want to sneeze now. What I've often come up against when product managers are trying to develop something like this, the story, they actually are thinking about all the features that they want from this thing, and that's why I'm trying to do this way, because they're not thinking of, oh well, that's this part of the system, and that's this part of the system, and that's that part of the system. And if we try and make them think that way, they start writing stories closer to how the software's built than the actual requirements they have. And you really do want them to explain what they want and what they need without trying to necessarily fit it into the current system. And the reason being, you know, you're not getting a true assessment of what they need if they are trying to fit it in. They're trying to fit this square peg in round hole potentially. Um, um, Alerting and reporting. So what I want to do is here provide a way of them explaining the summary and then adding the requirements. That's kind of my goal here. So um, we're gonna leave that at that. So we're gonna say, okay, our review date, and again we've got a problem here. We've got no labels, so there's some clear um, design questions here. So we're gonna review this next Friday, and we're gonna assign it to Andrew. Actually, we're gonna assign it to us. Um, this is changes. For right now, it's just changes. That should go into upcoming changes to planning items. That might take a while. Looking for advice. I don't feel like I'm getting better technically in my job. I'm trying to work in my spare time to learn more, but it's too exhausting. But the market now is bad. Can't leave my job, so I'm stuck. Welcome in. We'll say as DD. Um, yeah, that's a difficult one. Um, yeah. I'm trying to balance the advice there. I've been in the same situation a lot, right? It's common, um, and it's more frustrating because you want to get better. Um, you're not a developer that's just um, doing the job, right? Um, so you're not, yeah, you're definitely not alone. Good morning, Dot, by the way. My apologies. Um, yeah, no, you're definitely not alone in that. Um, I totally get that. Um, so there's two trains of thought, I suppose, for me. There's the one that's, can I learn something in my spare time that makes my day job better? Right. But then I'm feeling like I'm working on my spare time. So I don't generally do that one because it should be separate. You should get so you should be able to relax your brain and think about something that's not work related. If the technology overlaps and you can suggest that to your employer and say, "Hey, look, there's this cool technology that you could use that I've been working on. Not I've been using in my spare time." Then that's great, but you shouldn't focus on trying to improve your day job, right? Your day job is your day job. Um, what I often do is I try and find projects that are like this project is a passion project. I also work on some game library stuff. I have a collection of video games and I keep track of them. So I use the software, I build software for that. And I just try to tinker with technologies and I don't worry too much about completing things necessarily. This I'm focused on completing. I've been working on this on spare time for a year, as good as a year. Um, but um, you got to balance relaxing your brain a little bit as well. I've learned that lesson a little bit too much recently. So what I was doing is I was focusing on work on in my work hours and then focusing all my energy on doing this in my spare time. And that's where it got exhausting. So what I did is I actually took a step back and started playing a few more video games on my weekends and using some more of that time. And yes, I'm trying to fight that. Well, I need to be productive. I need to be building my skill set. I need to be doing that. I need to get better. But at the same time, stopping and taking a break and uh, the ads just started. I don't know if you caught behind them at all. Kind of depends where you are in your career too. Then I don't know. When I didn't know React, I was learning React in my spare time, for example. It can do, but it shouldn't do. I do see the point there because obviously, if you want to get better at your day job, then using your spare time. Um, but I also believe at this point that it's an employer's responsibility if they are hiring someone who is not an expert to make sure that that person has the time during the day to get better as well. I think it's constant education is something that an employer actually has a responsibility to with software, and I think it's often overlooked because we do so many things for them. Um, but I still believe the employers should suck up that time as well, right? They should accept, oh, this developer's a junior developer. I don't like the terms, right? Um, let's give them 3, 4, 5 hours a week extra of their work week as a here's some resources, go off and learn stuff, right? Um, on the flip side, I think seeking fulfillment through work is a recipe for happiness. I think if it's the only thing, I think finding your work fulfilling is definitely rewarding, and would be ideal. It makes it easier to get through the day, right? If you find your work fulfilling. Um, but yeah, if you put in your hopes on work being the be all end all, then yeah, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. But I mean, I'd say as the if you're finding um you might not realize this, but it actually made me feel better. I guess I needed someone who gets it. So thank you for real. No worries. I mean, um, there is a Discord there as well. If you ever want to just hang out and talk about projects or chat about stuff, I don't know what you know, the group you hang around with in terms of online, etc. If you talk much about software, you just play games or whatever, I don't know. But you know, just talking about projects and stuff. Sometimes that's enough to just relax you a little bit. Showing off a little cool thing you've done or whatever. Um, yeah, totally get it. Um, you know, with with my wife and daughter going back to school last week, um, it was a bit messy in the morning, so I skipped the streams for a couple of days, and I'd just get on Gran Turismo and do some racing, and I kind of got in the um, there is actually a streamer bot command, um, so Discord should work. Yeah, yeah. If you you know, and actually sometimes we do hang out in the voice chat, and we just actually this weekend, yesterday, Dota was looking through some database stuff, and we sat there and did that for a bit, which was good. Something completely unrelated to anything else. Yeah, Discord. Huh, well, so the dogs have decided that under my desk is the best place for them to sit. So one's lying on my foot, and the other one is lying where I can't put my other leg. So I'm I'm sat here with my legs tucked underneath me because the dogs are the dogs are comfortable. Well, I'll complain in a bit when they start jumping on my shoulders while I'm trying to stream. Okay, so genres are implemented through tags. That DB is awesome. That is a if you get in, I think that would be an awesome teaching database. Just from a how do you analyze this? What sort of problems do you have with it? What sort of form is this? Um, I don't think there was any foreign key constraints in there, so there were some challenges, but well, from what I saw, I didn't see any foreign key constraints, but they could have been in there. Depends on who you ask whether solid foreign keys are annoying or not. Um, I don't like I've kind of got into a standard that that didn't adhere to, so it was kind of weird to see because I've been working with MySQL, um, and it looks like the naming conventions kind of carry. SQL Server generally tends to be more in line with the way that Microsoft does it, and I think from what I remember with working with Oracle, they kind of do the same as SQL Server in terms of Pascal case, etc., etc. And new. So again, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to figure out what do I actually need to focus on to dog food this application. Can I do it now? Is it useful? what pieces do I actually need? Obviously, we had any comments last week, so we've kind of had this conversation already. But I've had basically what I've done is I've had a bit of a realization, and it's made me question, even if I wanted to make this a product, even if this became a thing, is it something we need? Is it actually something we need? Because this could be me just being having a bit of a negative run on things, right? But um, I had a conversation last week, and it's made me question whether we actually care about changing this, or we just care about complaining about the problem and finding new problems and never moving forward with this process because we can't come up with the best process possible, right? So we add new process, and then that process gets messy, and we complain about that process, and we rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Complaining? I always choose complaining. Hi, Google Mesh, how you doing? So, I've come a long way with this project. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of pieces in here, and I'm willing to change it. I'm willing to adapt it. I'm willing to modify it in the way that it needs to be modified. But I'm questioning. I mean, no process will be perfect. Even if my group did XP perfect, I'd still find elements of process I didn't like. Yeah, yeah. Um, I will say I am holding some stuff back there that I cannot talk about specifically. Um, but it has made me wonder about the actual usefulness of any product. Um, that adds process. Because I think, I guess what I'm getting to is, um, I'm starting to think whether, regardless of it all we want to do is waterfall. I've been thinking of doing a larger project because larger projects have problems that only large projects have. Yeah, yeah. Well, just this project, right? It highlights that there's every time you add a new feature, you know, a bunch of new features become possible and a bunch of diversion. It's kind of like a tree. It's just growing ever more. And every time you go and stop and say, oh, well, I need this now, and you branch off there, you start another branch, and that branch has branches, etc. It becomes, where do you tackle that? The more agile practices my group takes on, the better work is overall. But that's the problem. Taking on the agile practices. If I'm going by the agile stuff, then technically none of this should be actually necessary, right? It should just be, we're tracking work and we're doing work. And again, I'm not trying to aim this at developers, which is why I'm thinking through it. I'm letting the thoughts flow here a little bit. I'm not. How do you plan out spikes, etc.? Background work needs to start the actual work. Well, again, you you use Trello and you stick a card in there and accountability. Tools like this, and I've said it for a long time, right? Tools like this are for management. They're not for development. And that's where I'm trying to make sure that I'm solid. on those ideas, that foundational concept that I'm not trying to make this about the software development. I'm trying to make this about management and planning. Spikes spikes are technical items. They would go in a board anyway and get tracked as work. They wouldn't be a planning item. It might be an offshoot of a planning item, right? There might be, okay, we need to do this. Oh, we need to create a story to track that before we take that planning item up. My music project is right now is interesting since I cannot really start anything yet. Because you've got to figure out some of the stuff. Yeah, you've got to do some of the foundational, the groundwork. No, no. Yeah. Most businesses are deep in the weeds. Okay. It's this is challenging because obviously um, I'm trying to avoid technical aspects. I'm trying to avoid aligning these requirements with technical components of the system. I'm trying to turn off my developer brain and switch on my um, product management dreaming brain, right? Ooh, this would be cool. This would be cool. This would be cool. Because that's really what requirements would be, right? It's not necessarily the product manager saying, "Oh, this would be really cool if it could, you know, if it could fly things across the screen, etc." But it's more they've talked to a customer. The customer is excited about something, and the product manager is trying to capture those things after they figured out, yeah, that's actually a requirement. The customer would benefit from that. That's a requirement. That's a requirement, and that's why this is the way it is. I don't want it to align to the actual system. Technically, I want it to align to the visuals, the things they actually can relate to. Solving tech debt and adding new features would be the two activities typically. Again, solving tech debt lands in the developer's path, and that's a whole different challenge. To believe that tech debt should be understood. It should be clear. It should be defined, and it should be visualized for the organization to see, and not hidden in code. I don't. So when you're writing stories, I'm not saying that it's like a shameful thing. I'm saying it's like we write software and we make compromises. Those compromises should be understood, and the tech debt that is created from those compromises is documented and understood going forward so that we know, oh, we have a problem there. We need to address that. Okay, so um, seeing the changes in the details. As a user, it is helpful for me to be able to see the things changed on a item in chronological order. Newest first. Um, Now, I know from having dealt with requirements in the past, right? And um, that this is one where developers should push back, and I'm not going to write what I was about to write because I think it's too generic and I don't have the editability. So this is going to be that's item number one. Edit requirements. Right. So we just identified a feature that we need. So what I was about to start writing was find one with actual changes. This would be useful. Oh, dorp. Here's one with a lot of changes, right? What I was about to start writing was, oh, when it's got an assigned user, I should see the usernames. When it's got a review date, I should see the review date. When it's got comments, I should see the comments, right? I was about to start adding those in as explicit pieces. But that's the sort of stuff where a PM, changes requirements. Actually, it's identifying its own problem, right? A PM would write this. Absolutely. And then leave it up to the developers to figure out. But the developers should clarify, right? So again, it's this is where it goes. The developers should understand the system well enough to be able to say, well, hold on, that's not quite correct. I need to oh. Writing acceptance tests lately while making the feature was really helpful in understanding requirements of a feature. Essentially use what you have as your requirement as a test name. Right. And if the requirements are clear, the acceptance test should be clear as well. Yeah. That's yeah. Understanding the system is, I don't have a lot of experience writing a lot of like acceptance level tests. But I do understand the value of writing useful unit tests. Yeah. And I do understand testing in general, right? So that's why I'm trying to build this piece. This is my focus, is because getting this information out of product management teams to get actually what they're expecting and then be able to say, well, hold on, that's not correct. That's not a story. This is a story. So the stories and what they expect aren't always in line, because the technical aspects of stories often mean other things have to be done or can be broken up differently. And if the planning from the product manager perspective, if they can see, here's what I've got, here's the stories associated to what I've got, yep, they're all checked off, yep, they're fine, right? I think that's a useful thing, because they can see the story in the way they know the story, and we can see the story in the way we know the story, and keep them separate. As a user, the feature will not affect existing users by, and the obvious positive case. Yeah, so you gotta balance out, right? But again, it's important developers ask questions. It's important that, because there's a lot of assumptions, and asking questions, getting rid of assumptions will refine requirements properly. And again, trying to make a discussion point of this planning item. This is not the work. This is the idea for the work. This is the seed. The work will be generated from this and tracked against this, so that the PM doesn't actually need to go into the work boards and to see where things are. Right. What my actual visual of this is, basically, if you think about the swim lanes, Um, what I want to be able to do is essentially for any part of the system, be able to see the swim lanes of where those things lie. So you could go into a planning item and look at the stories and see, oh, these are ready to be done. These are in progress. These are completed. That's great for an initiative. For all the planning items on an initiative, you could do the same thing. For a project, you could do the same thing. So it's just a view of the data, and you can at a glance see where everything lies at any one point based off what piece you're looking at. Um, from the team perspective, from the development team perspective, they're just working on items that are assigned to them. So the project doesn't matter to them. The team matters to them. And it's funny because we've just kind of gone through that conversation um, uh, regarding our usage of Jira in a similar way. Jira can be set up to do that. So Jira doesn't have to be project based. It can be team based and view projects. So this is the sort of thing where this should trigger. This should be a lot more descriptive, right? This should be what do we do in certain scenarios? What do we do on a requirement change, right? If the requirement, there was no requirements, now there's 3 requirements. What do we display, right? What do you want to see? Because seeing the text of the requirements makes no sense. What do you actually want to see? So that's an important thing to understand. And then from the technical perspective, that's for the developers to figure out. But again, this should be editable. That's item number 1 on my list of things that I need to make this usable, right? This has to be editable. Um, um, be able to subscribe to um, um, the user. It is useful me to be able to be alerted certain pieces of information on a planning item. Well, there was story have changed within the details of a planning item. I should be able to select which fields no tangent. um, but actually, that does bring up the idea. Um, so, on an individual basis, being able to say, okay, for this particular planning item, I only care about right because the notification rules. That's going to be a complicated piece. But my idea is always one of kind of cascading. So if I subscribe to this planning item, then there's no need for me to say I care about the review date changing or I care about whatever changing because I'm going to be told when this planning item changes. But if I don't care about the planning item specifically, but I care about the review date changing on this particular planning item, right? Then I might want to say, just watch the review date for me. Or if the project is assigned, yeah. I think what you just wrote there is closer to an idea than an implementable piece of functionality. That's the purpose. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's the way a PM is going to think about it. That's the way a customer is going to think about it first, right? I want to capture those things. Those are the requirements, right? Those are the requirements that we need to dig into and develop more. And then when they become stories, add the things that become the actual technical or the implementable piece. That's why I'm doing this way. I don't want to make this about defining exactly how it should be implemented. I want this to be defining, I want this to be a wish list builder, right? That can be discussed, can be reviewed, can be removed, can be cleaned up before it becomes actual schedulable work. Within the details of a planning item, I should be able to select which fields I would like to be alerted to changing. If I have subscribed to the planning item, then I should not be able to what's the word? Subscribe to individual. Yes. Right. Essentially. But again, some items are going to overlap, right? Some things are going to be implementable because they think about it and they see it. Well, again, this isn't the story. This will never be the story. The idea is once this is all built and the PM is happy that this is going to be workable, they sit down with the development team. They go through these. This is what they present to the development team. They then say, okay, we're good to create some stories. They create some stories from that. Maybe they do that with the lead. Maybe they do that with whoever. They create the stories, and this one item might create 3 different stories. This one item might create a dozen different stories. It might create 2 dozen. It doesn't matter, right? Essentially becomes an epic at that point, but that's not really the concern of this. The idea of this is to get those ideas out there, to get them worded so that they're not technically aligned, have the discussion, have the questions. Maybe you delete one of these, maybe you add one of these, etc. And then you generate the stories from these. These can then be tied back up to what they actually asked for versus the story. The story doesn't have to be everything to everybody. It can be the story for the developers to work upon, right? It can be broken down into the smallest unit. It can be broken down in whatever way you care about. So the idea is one of gathering information rather than describing what's going to be done. So ready for dev comes from us saying, yep, this item, this generates this story. We're good with that. And then what's going to happen is a stories tab is going to appear here and it's going to list all the stories. On here, potentially, you could also see the list of stories that were created for it or from it. So there'll be traceability. You will be able to see, oh, it generated these stories, these things are done. And that's why I'm saying that this might be considered an epic. It might be one story, right? But it could be an epic just as much. So we kind of discussed this the other week about tags and stuff. I think tags is still on that list of things to do, right? Ideas. We status. We've got to implement ability to close the planning item. Tagging, prioritization, capacity planning. That's another problem. Create configurable receiver. Yeah. There's definitely value in understanding the process of making a story, regardless of software use. Yeah. So, yeah, this doesn't need to be marked as ready for dev because this is, so there is a status though. Because it's not necessarily ready for dev, it's more ready for discussion. It's like, yeah, this is in a good place now, right? So we need to add that in. looking at the number. By the way, if you are new to the stream, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you are more than welcome to join in the conversation. This is not about getting the software written, well, quite clearly right now. But I'm happy to talk about this stuff. I'm happy to divert and talk about the technologies or any of the questions. So feel free. I gotta head to work. Good luck, Dota. Have a great day. Thank you very much, as always. And see you again soon. So, choice on notifications. The user, say subscribed. As a subscriber to changes on a planning item. It's useful. I would like to have an option as to how I'm told about the changes. Um, um, be able to so this is one way you'd want to discuss, right? Because you'd want to talk about, okay, my personal thought is here that I want to say, okay, globally, I would like to be told um, in a daily digest email, right? That's going to be its own problem. So I'd like to be told in a daily digest email, here's the things that changed, are the things that you actually cared about today. But then on an individual item, I should be able to override that and say, well, if this changes, I want a pop-up notification immediately. Um, there are several options. This isn't going to work because it's not Markdown, so that's um, um, several options. Daily digest, email, email that summarizes. So daily digest email, inbox notification, um, the user's dashboard. That is a change to a planning item. And then pop up notification, a um, a Pop-up bots on screen. Here's letting them know planning item they care about. It's been changed. Main in gutter is the right word, I think. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's interesting. That padding. How did that happen? Planning items, DBO, tables, requirements. Huh. That's quite interesting, that display, isn't it? So that just added the padding. Just added an insane amount of padding to that header. Let's have a look. App requirements. Grid rows 2, gap 2. Don't think we need that grid. Why is adding that padding? Also, I misspelled choice. It's a voice. Box sizing, border box, display block. Height 129. How's that? It's like it's what's the word? Doubling up, isn't it? So that was one line, that's 2 lines, that's 4 lines. What am I missing there? Not this. Let's take that out. That looks healthier, doesn't it? That's interesting. That does that. The challenge with using Tailwind at the same time as I don't want them to be. I mean, they're not. Again, this isn't the final layout, so I don't really. I shouldn't really care, but I do care enough that the style of it does bother me a little bit. Edge to edge. Let's try this. Class. Oh, that's going to be BG. Come on. 800. I don't think that's going to do what I wanted to do. Div class equals px4 py5. That's not going to be smpx6. Feels like just for fun. It doesn't look as bad as I thought it would, to be honest. BG Gray 600. Lower the padding. Yeah, it's not so chunky. Not terrible. Is it? Does that require the flex? Yeah, I think it does, doesn't it? There you go. That's a bit better. Text. Font semi-bold. I know I'm tinkering. But that's a little cleaner. Comments would probably do better displayed similar to this as well. But we don't want that. We don't deal with sharp edges here, right? Okay. Enough playing around. That's a style requirements. Actually, let me do this, this, this. Put it back to what it was. Actually, does make it a bit more readable, doesn't it? They are clearer. I mean, obviously they're not formatted. I do want to do some formatting. Yeah. Okay. Let's do a bit of a commit there. Style requirements to Aided readability. Commit to push. It's on development, but that's fine. I'm the only one working on this code base, so that's not going to hurt me. Famous last words. Okay, that's a different problem. That's a branch problem. So let's go back and just review this. So I can add requirements. Obviously, there's some formatting challenges there. I'm thinking what I want to do is introduce kind of a markdown editor of some form and be able to at least do something basic there. We'll see. So we can add new requirements. We can lay those out. We do need to edit requirements. That's going to be something that I think I need to focus on more immediately, because that is, necessary. Putting attachments on requirements. Is going to be something I want to do as well. So that this pop-up is going to be way more involved, right? Attachments would get attached to the entity itself anyway. So when you do upload an attachment, it does go into Azure, but it would be an attachment to the planning item as well as the requirement. So you see all the planning items attachments there, but even on the requirement, you can see which ones were individually added to the requirements. That's a long-standing item. That doesn't prevent me from moving forward with the actual application, right? Comments. This is a comment. It should be descriptive. Let's treat this as if it's real. So, status, displaying item. Store problem there as well. Comments. That should load, right? That's now only loading when it's on the server, so it's done the full round trip, which is not correct. Also, that might benefit from that treatment. While I'm procrastinating. So if you are watching and you do have any opinions on this, I would be interested to know, like, do you see what I'm trying to do? Is it obvious what I'm trying to do? Do you have questions on the validity of what it's doing? I'm trying to that's really what the stream is today. It's me kind of questioning the validity of the product as a product concept, questioning the usefulness and trying to test that and identify what pieces I need to be working on and focus on to move forward. So I'm definitely interested in understanding if anybody has opinions. PB4. Let's do BG Gray 800 for a second. No. So that was requirements. We did this. Am I just using the wrong color? No, because it made it 700 on the actual outcome. I bet you if I change that, I bet the background is 800. Helps if you have number lock on as well. Yeah, that's the problem. The comments really benefit there. Not entirely sure. Class equals grid gap 2. P4. That was a little healthier, right? A little bit more consistent. Need one which no title on comments, so that's okay. Uh, okay. Okay. Changes angular style comments in line with requirements. I think AL's will read about it. We'll see. So, in terms of features to use, so status is definitely something I need to figure out. Right. So we need to deal with status. So let's start that process right now. So what should that look like? Well, status doesn't matter when you're. I'm going to flip flop between the American pronunciation and the more British pronunciation. I think, but status, however you want to say it, is going to be going to be a set values, a set of values. There's no flexibility to it. It's basically, is this being prepared? Is this ready for planning, or is it in progress? In progress being the things that are in it are working, are starting work, and is it completed? Right. So we end up with let's have a look. Well, it's best to actually document this probably in workflows, standards, ideas, projects. We're in here. So this is why I'm developing this the way I am, right? Because this is an idea. Actually, this is this is actually one that we can actually describe the difference between new item showing status of planning items. Planning items do not need to live forever. They are only useful a preparation tool, preparation for my mouth, my mouse flying everywhere. They're a preparation tool for future work and such need to be have a life cycle. So that we are not constantly having to update the review date. So basically, a planning item that's in progress means that the stories that have been created from it are actually often working. The review date doesn't really matter to that because the review date of that planning item now becomes the closest review date of any of the work, right? So there's no point in actually having a review date on that planning item, because you're actually then watching the items that are part of that planning item. So, and then once it's complete, there's absolutely no value in review date because review date is past. That review date is now historical, and shouldn't be changed again, right? So once it's complete, everything locks down. Yeah. Planning items regardless, so that we are not constantly having to update the review date planning regardless of the state of the um, do that by Friday. We should have this done, I think. Assigned to Jeffrey. This is planning and UI. So the projects there are not necessarily guaranteed the projects that will be worked on. The idea there is again one of exploring, um, giving the option for the PM to say, "Oh, I think it's these projects that are associated to this," but not actually have to commit it to any specific project. Now, in reality, PMs are normally associated with groups, with teams, etc. So the likelihood is they know exactly what project, but sometimes those projects overlap and there's technical requirements or technical overlaps, etc. So the associated projects, maybe that becomes an optional field once we start to use this or to get people to test it. But it is a useful thing. Maybe there's other things there, right? So we've already talked about adding tags, etc. as well. Um, so status of planning items. Let's add a requirement. Setting the status. I should, when editing a planning item, I should be able to set the status default. And this is again, this is the sort of thing you need to explore because the PM writing the story or writing again, I got a planning item, creating the planning item might not highlight something simple like the default status, right? So you've got to make sure you're asking questions. And again, why I do want to keep doing this, keep going through this process and saying, hey, there's a difference between this and stories because developers need to ask questions, and this gives us a chance to put those questions out there, and not make them firm stories that can just go and work on it. It's fine. We can make up as we go along. That's what gets us in trouble all the time. When editing in a planning item, I should be able to set the status. The default status of a newly created planning item should be. So what do I want here? I want preparing, in progress. Now, in progress suggests that we're working on it. Ready for planning. That's going to be a quirky one. So actually, no, there's that. I'm just writing them down so I think about them. And then there's completed. So preparing is the current state. Once we have got all the information in there, we mark it as ready for planning. Once it's gone to develop, so ready for planning, the review date still matters. Review date matters, review date matters. Once it goes to in development, right? So the actual work has been said, yep, this is off. We mark it's in progress. The review date no longer matters to this planning item because we'll have to figure that out. Because essentially the review date of this planning item becomes the earliest review date of any of the stories that are being worked on, right? Because you want to keep an eye on it, right? You want to make sure the planning item is moving forward with the stories. The planning item should stay visible. Yeah. So the review date becomes a calculated review date at that point because it's the earliest of the stories that are attached to the planning item. Let's note that down because that's a useful. Once in progress, the review date of the planning item becomes a calculated field and is the earliest stories. Hey, Mr. Jones, how you doing? We can kind of plan that later. So status, the available statuses are preparing, ready for planning, in progress, completed. And again, that's not going to display correctly, but whatever. We'll work on that later. I need to figure out a markdown editor. I think that would be a good way of doing that. Or just put in a nice editor that tracks markdown in the background and then translates to HTML. A new should not items that are completed should not be displayed in the default planning item list. A filter will allow us to select. So I should be able to filter to select. That's a bigger story, right? So that's an implied piece of functionality that is worth tracking. I deliberately wrote that for that purpose, right? Items that are completed should not be displayed in the default planning list. I should be able to filter to select to see the completed items. That's a feature. That doesn't exist as yet. So when items are marked as completed, they should disappear from here, but I can't get them back unless I provide the filtering. So that filtering is a story unto itself. So this item would actually yield 2 stories, right? Because the first story would be excluding certain statuses from this list by default, or it would include adding the filtering and providing that functionality. So it might be a little bit more involved than just that. So you might want to discuss, but you should discuss that because this feature doesn't exist. So we've got an entire new thing. And this is the problem. When we create these as stories and they get accepted as stories and people don't realize to ask questions, they get, why are we behind on this? Why are we doing this? Oh, because we need to do this before we could do this. We didn't talk about it. We didn't discuss what that actual requirement means and dictate, oh, well, that's actually a story. So again, yeah. So the status of planning items is the first priority we have this week. We'll be focusing on introducing this facility, this capability, not facility, or facilitating changing the status, I suppose. Okay. Um, Need to talk about that. So from here, what would I do? Well, we need to figure out from a planning perspective, okay, what would this involve? So from a stories perspective, when editing a planning item, I should be able to set the status. So there's a lot more involved in the system than just that one, 2 sentences. So to achieve that story is non-trivial. Let's go into why. Setting the status. First, we have no concept of status. So we need to update the edit endpoint planning item, include status, right? That's just the backend. Update the command, well, introduce new column for status. add enum, um, present, update command handler. Um, so should a status, if it's in preparing and marked as ready for planning, can it go back to preparing? Yes. If it's in progress, can it be marked back for ready for planning? That's where we get into a bit of a mess because I don't know about anyone else's experiences, but if you've ever gone and created an epic in Jira, an epic basically becomes, or has become for me, an undefined bucket of work, or an unending bucket of work. It basically becomes let's just lump it under that thing. And I'm genuinely interested in opinions here, if you have any on how epics work, on the challenges that epics pose. What I want to avoid is having an open-ended planning item that keeps getting moved back to preparing or ready for planning or in progress, etc. So can you move it? I think you can move it back to preparing from ready for planning. But once it goes to in progress, can it move back to ready for planning? Is that something I need to concern myself with now? Probably not. Being that I don't have the in progress components, right? I don't have the stories. So there's no validation on status. Now, again, understanding that um, status means nothing right this second. We do have another requirement. Status should be a column, should be able to see status on overview, the list of planning items, indicate the current status of the also I'm going to do another offshoot as I'm dreaming up a feature. That's going to pose a massive problem to just do what I just dreamt up there. But there is a potential, and again, in terms of opinions, this is something that this is going to matter to the overall usability of this screen, right? Is it useful to see the status as a column? Yes, definitely. But is it more useful to say, okay, I want all preparing past due, current, upcoming, or I want all past due, preparing, ready for planning, in progress, completed, all current, blah, 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 all upcoming, blah, blah, blah. And these windows are configurable, remember. So these are not hard coded, but they are calculated and grouped by this. So this is going to be, that's going to be a fun challenge. Update to set the status. Update integration event to publish the status. That's going to come in as a string. It's going to be the string enum value. Or we're going to create a representation of the enum for the integration event because it can't be, you can't publish the internal enumeration. That's not good practice. And yes, this exposes a piece of data, but it's data that's composed that's deliberately shareable. It's not the internal representation of it. So we need to upgrade the integration event, and then we need to update view to capture. Well, hold on. That is setting the status. Being able to set the status and publish it. That is setting the status. That's our limit, right? That's the service needs to change. So the client will send it. We'll assume the client sends it. We'll get it in planning, update it in planning, and publish the integration event. That's story number one. If we're working in, depending on the teams we're working in as well, that would actually be one team's work. Story number one. Capture the stats. Story number two. Actually, that's record the stats, not capture it. This is capture the stats, which is update UI to include new field on edit planning item. And this is where mockups become important, because what you do need to know is where am I going to put that icon? Where am I going to put that drop down, right? Is it going to go here? Is it going to go here? Where is it going to go? My best bet right now is we'll put it below associated projects. Associated projects. Should be drop down. Is defaulted to preparing. Is not optional. And again, those are things that need to be defined, right? It, it seems very obvious sometimes, but just writing them down and making sure they're clear can actually make you think about some impact, some behavior, etc. And that's what I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we pull those requirements out and ask the right questions? Because they often get missed, and then you make an assumption and think, hey, this button should go in this place, and then the user sees it when you've delivered the story 2 weeks later, and they're like, why is that button there? Like, well, because the story didn't tell me where it should be, and I figured that seemed like the logical place. Nope. Now I need to go back again through testing, and so you can waste a lot of time just off something very simple. And again, it depends on your organization, your grouping, but it can happen. It does happen. Realize how much dogs can snore. Okay, so we need to update the UI to include a new field. Drop down defaults to preparing. Update store planning item. Update the service. Also need to capture the route in the Kafka in the Ocelot configuration. So the No, we don't. We don't need to do anything there. We need to. If you're adding a new endpoint or whatever, you also need to update the Ocelot configuration because you need to make sure that that route is allowed for in the API gateway, right? Because everything goes through the gateway. So that's story number 2. So again, this is just off this item, this requirement, right? This is not these 3. This is just this item, right? Story number 3. Because again, the implicit behavior here is that when I click on this item again, I see the stars. To get to that point, I need to make sure I capture that information. So story number 3. So it's a very simple. When editing a planning item, I should be able to set the status. The default status of a newly created planning item should be preparing. The available statuses are preparing, ready for planning, in progress, completed. There's an implied piece there that says I should also see it when I click on it, that it is that status that the edit takes. So to do that is more involved. From the This is what this would do. When we say, okay, it's ready for planning, we go through, we talk to the developers. The developers would kind of figure this piece out themselves based upon what they need to do. They then generate the stories off of this requirement. The idea would be that this requirement would track back to these stories. So you could go to the story and get back to the planning item and the requirement that triggered this story, and vice versa. So story number 3 is, let's see it. Update view consumer to capture the status, the PI integration event, update the database, record, update GraphQL. Actually, no, update view, a PI view to allow to accommodate. I'm just wonderful at the spelling thing today. Status. Now, this is where it gets a little bit messy, right? If I was working, if Liquid Sky had different teams for different pieces, then the view component here, this API called view, yes, the view has views, and you view the views. This would be one team. The actual client would be a different team. So this could be one story or 2 stories still, because I've got to update the UI side of things now. So now I've got this piece in place. I've got the GraphQL component in place. Morning, Napalm. How you doing? What do I do? Right. I'm going to be I'm going to overdo it purely for the sake of demonstration. But I mean, obviously, all this is going to get done in pretty much one item anyway for right now for me. But it would be many stories because they could actually independently have incremental value to the system. Let's, let's display it. Update client GraphQL to pull create to pull. What's this going to be? Status update model for planning item status and date drop down with value. Update client, update model. And there we go. That should work now. So this one requirement, as simple as it is, actually would yield 4 stories, right? Um, and it's just a field. There's other questions. Um, is it just a string that I'm comparing to? Am I displaying something? Am I creating a mapping? Um, this is right now a hard coded list of values, right? We've already said there's only 4 items, right? What happens, let the developer brain go. What happens if they decide they want a 5th value? Well, that should just be a status, right? But there's also knock-on impacts to doing that. So do we create a table for status? Do we have a GUID attached to status? But if we do that, then we've got to publish the status. So who owns that piece, right? The status of a project, the status of a planning item. Is that the planning system still? So there's just that one field could have a lot of impact, and it's worth understanding that and discussing that. And that's why this is useful, to not have these as actual defined stories yet, to talk about these things and go through these things and identify, okay, well, this yielded 4 actual stories that could be worked on in parallel. Because recording the status can be worked upon, and the tests written, etc. Capturing the status on the UI can be written. It can't be tested because the API doesn't exist, but against mocks, etc., it could be validated. So those two technically have to go hand in hand. Capturing data that's produced, you can still mock this value up and capture it as if it's going to work and do all the testing to record. So all this can be tested, unit tested, not integration tested necessarily. And then display. Yeah, you can mock up that data and display it. So I think this stream I've kind of answered my question, right? My stream title is this product actually worth building? Ad break. We're gonna wait. We're just gonna wait that ad out. Need messages for ads. I need to get Seribot enabled. Hi Shy. How's it going? I should get into the habit of taking a break. But the problem is that this is almost the end of the stream, so it's a little hard. Either that, I'll do the 3-minute ad things and then just take a break on the hour, and then hopefully catch this window. Okay, ads should be finished. So it's going well. It's going well. How are you doing, Shy? All good. So what I've worked on today is kind of discussing a bit of discussion, a bit of cleaning up, and kind of trying to use the application to see what features I need to add to make it an actual useful application, right? So what we've done is we've created a few planning items. So we've added the status of the planning item. So we want to track the status. So what we actually envisioning here. Again, this is not the technical side of things. This is This is the dream side of things. This is the planning, the product manager saying, hey, here's what I want to do. And then what I've done is I've gone through and analyzed what are the stories that I'm going to actually need to do that. Right. And all I've done here is tackle this one requirement can yield 4 separate stories. I'm feeling good today, a little tired after spending time with a group of people. Socializing is hard. But that's good. Uh, so yeah, we've added comments. We've added 2 actual items, so changes to planning items. This is another one we've discussed. And if I go through this one, this is even more massive, right? The stories that are going to get created from this are going to be even larger than the others. Right, we've added comments, etc. We looked at good and bad CVs and I have some things I can add now, but the mentor said mine was already quite good. Nice, nice. Yeah, it's amazing. I've taken the step of having my resume reviewed before, and the things that they would put on and remove, etc. Yeah, I have different issues, right, um, with resume slash CV. Um, 'Cause, yeah, when you're starting out, you've got to kind of promote whatever abilities you have to stand out and get picked as a candidate to start a job. When you have experience, it's what experience do you put on and how do you tailor a resume to make sure that you highlight the things that you can do that are relevant to the jobs you're applying for. It's 2 sides of the same coin. Either way, your resume slash CV is a sales pitch, and it can have quite an impact immediately. So I did start this stream feeling a little down and a little negative about this as a project. If I'm being honest, I was concerned that what I was doing was building a tool that is completely unnecessary. Primarily because development teams don't necessarily want to do a lot of this stuff. But then pivoting and rethinking, okay, well, hold on, I'm not aiming this at development teams, right? I need to be clear about that. I'm not trying to make this a tool that developers have to concern themselves with. I'm trying to make this a tool that developers get to see once this has been done, once this has been figured out, once this discussion, has gone through many steps and is now ready for them to actually dig into and figure out what do you need to do. So this is more the developer phase, right? Oh, we've got these requirements. How do we go about those requirements? Now let's capture these as actual stories. Let's create them and track them so that the product management team can track them all back to the things they think about, and we can think about the things we think about, but not overlap. Um, so I'm a little bit more confident that I am on the right path. I think it is a useful thing to do. Um, and by continuing to try and explore using the application for the application, it will get a little easier. Thursday, we'll continue the course with a motivation mail letter, and we might actually send emails as well. Nice, nice. Well, I uh, I wish you luck with that. It's and I don't mean in a you need the luck. I mean in the that it goes well and that things are progressing for you, because it's intimidating. So what day? I think I'm back by then. Oh, 2 very nice mentors, so I'm sure I'll be okay. That's good. It's good to have. people you're comfortable with. Yeah, sorry, I'm I'm in a bit of a reflective mood in general. Reflecting over this, I had the last week away from streaming. But yeah, no worries, Shy. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you around soon. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for updating me. I do appreciate it. But anyway, I am actually about to finish anyway because it is work time for me. So yeah, have a great rest of your day, Shy, and everybody else. So we're gonna go raid full bots because it's been a week or two. Yeah, you'll definitely see me there. I've missed a few recently, which has upset me a little bit, but I do try and get in there. Um, if you have not been there before, by the way, One Lion maybe or may not be streaming um, today. Check out his Discord, but otherwise, that is where I will be later on. Um, Always a great place to be, a great streamer and a great developer. Mr. Jones, may your foot find Lego soon. Um, Napalm, thank you very much for coming and hanging out for a bit. Appreciate it. Let's go raid full bots. We need some more .NET streamers at this time of the day. I need a bigger pool of people to jump into. So if anybody has .NET developers or developers that they think are worthy of jumping to after my streams, please feel free to shout them out. But otherwise, I'm going to go raid full bots, and I will be back again tomorrow where I'll actually start the development of these features, and we'll see how quickly we can get an actual feature implemented. So yeah, there we go. So take care. I'll see you soon. Have a good one.